Here now as well. Okay, so yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. Chances are I've already had a one-to-one conversation with a lot of you, or sometimes for some of you it might be the first time we're speaking. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Adam. I look after customer support and success here at Indico Labs. I have a long background in market research. I've been in the industry since 2010, started going up and doing face-to-face surveys with people in supermarkets, all the way through to what I'm doing now. And yeah, I've had a lot of first-hand experience of the problems associated with manual report creation. Indico Labs was founded in 2019 with the sole focus of helping researchers to produce quant research reports more efficiently. Today, we're looking specifically at those dreaded appendix slides and how our software can be used to take something that is usually a bit of a pain point and can often be seen as a waste of time and resource into a deliverable that the clients actually find really valuable and in many cases are willing to pay a bit extra for. That's the dream. This won't be a particularly long session. I'm hoping for it to be roughly 30 to 45 minutes of me talking with a demo included, although I'm happy to stick around at the end and answer any questions for as long as people want. Just an overview of the general flow. There'll be a short review of the problem. I know many of you will be aware of the problems, but I want to kind of touch on some of the things we've heard from researchers about appendix reports. And then we'll look at the solution, which will be a demo of our report builder and DashBox software. And then at the end, we can stick around for a Q&A session, which can be a technical Q&A about features within report builder and DashBox, or any general questions that you might have about any of our other products and services. Feel free to share any questions throughout using the chat feature. I can't actually see it while I'm presenting these slides, but when I'm doing the demo, I'll be able to see your questions, but we'll save all of the questions for the end anyway. But feel free to send them through as you think of them, and then we'll run through any questions that you've got at the end of the session. So I'm not saying this is necessarily how you feel about these, but I would be interested to read in the comments whether this aligns with your thinking. But based on the numerous conversations that I've had about this, my view is that many research agencies view appendix sections as kind of dirty or irrelevant. In fact, I've actually had many conversations where researchers have proudly told me, we don't offer appendix style slides. And I'm not necessarily here to say that they're wrong in any way. I really get it. Like, a traditional appendix section is often every question charted in pretty basic looking slides and sometimes repeated for many different cuts of data. It can often transform a focused consultative report from a 10-slide presentation to a 200-slide deck. And obviously, producing those slides is seemingly low value. There's often a feeling that nobody even looks at these slides, or if they do, maybe they use 2 or 3 out of the 150 charts that you've produced. And for that reason, customers don't really want to pay that much for them. But they're still hugely time consuming. Someone still has to create the charts, and someone, probably a more experienced member of staff on a higher salary, needs to quality check them before they go to the customer. In fact, if there are a lot of these slides, it can sometimes feel as though more time is spent on producing these appendix slides than working on the main body of the report. And I don't believe that anyone here believes that that is the correct way around. Think about all the stuff your researchers could be doing instead of manually creating charts that maybe nobody will look at. And why is it that we think nobody looks at these slides? Well, appendix slides are often not that interesting to look at. Perhaps it's a symptom of being time consuming and painful to create in the first place. It's easier to build a bunch of slides that look pretty much the same than create a varied set of slides that traditionally require a lot more time and effort to generate. And of course, due to the scale, as a customer, it can actually be pretty difficult to find what it is you need from an appendix. Perhaps their stakeholder has asked them for a few slides that cover a certain topic, and they have to dig through hundreds of boring slides to try and find what it is that they actually need. And in many cases, perhaps that cut of the data isn't even charted in the appendix. So what happens in that scenario? Well, more often than not, they will probably come back to you and they will say, can you quickly produce these charts for me and cut these questions by X or Y? And then what? How much extra are you going to be able to charge to do that, even though it's probably going to pull resources from something else important? So what I plan to show you today is how to transform a low-value, time-consuming and manual process, resulting in a deliverable that customers hate but need, into a high-value and actually useful deliverable that can be produced in under 5 minutes, that your customers will actually love and will help you to stand out from the crowd. So I'm just going to switch screens so that I can demo while looking at you guys at the same time. Let me bring you back. Go over to the other screen. So I can see there are some familiar names in the chat. So some of you will have seen these products before, but the next section is going to be a demo of our report builder DashBox tools. My screen's not visible yet, is it? It's taking a while to come up. There we go. Can you see my screen now? If someone could just confirm in the chat, that would be great. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Okay, cool. So yeah, like I said, some of you will be familiar with this tool. For a lot of you, it will be the very first time seeing it. This was actually the first tool we created as Indico Labs, the first tool we took to market. What you're looking at right now is the project area for Report Builder. Report Builder is actually the main tool, the tool that is used to generate the slides and generate the DashBox. And then DashBox is an extension of Report Builder. Just so that you're aware of what we're looking at, I want to show you what it is that I'm actually importing into the software. So this tool ingests data tables. So the starting point is not raw data. What you are uploading is the set of tables that you are already receiving or you're already producing elsewhere. And then the software is creating a user interface on top of those, on top of the data that you've already uploaded. So this is the data that I'm going to use for the demo today. Yours might look completely different. This is one of the first questions that people ask me when I'm demoing it to people one-to-one is, am I going to have to take my data and make it look like that? The answer is no. We take a bunch of examples of your existing data, and then we teach the platform how to read in your data. So this is just an example set. In this, I happen to have questions on individual tabs. You might have all of your questions all on the same sheet. That's totally fine. And within here, I have 5 different banner groups or cross breaks if we're in the UK. So we've got total, gender, on-demand segmentation, social grade, and region. You could have 100 different banner groups, and you could have tons of tables in here. That's totally fine. You may also have counts in here. You may also have SIG testing in here. That's all fine as well. We teach the platform how to handle that. And then when you upload your data, the software will pull out exactly what it needs to work with. What that does mean is that within the software, you aren't creating brand new cuts of the data, and you aren't creating new nets or anything like that. You are working with what you are importing into the software. So let's take that exact same file, and I'm going to start a new project. And let's get that file, and I'm just going to pull it into here. Hit run. And now what the software is doing is basically running through that file and figuring out where each table starts and ends and what important information is around that table. So what I mean by that is question text, table name, sample description, obviously all the rows and columns and everything like that as well, but also where the data is. And I've imported that file and it's found 16 individual tables. Like I said, you might have 100 or even 500 tables. That's totally fine. At this point, it will give you a list of all the tables that it finds. And you can choose which of those tables you want to import as your starting point. They'll all be accessible to you after you start the project as well. But at this point, if you've got 500 tables, you may only want to create a section of 50 slides or something like that. But if I hit import, it's just going to create one slide for each and every table that it's found. So this is the report builder interface. Traditionally, our customers use this to effectively build out that static PowerPoint report. That's what we built it for in the first place. That was the intention of the tool. And we'll spend a bit of time in here today. I'll run you through all of the different features, tell you what is and isn't possible. And then I will show you how you can expand that to turn it into a separate deliverable that can be delivered to your customer and is an interactive version of this with stripped back functionality. So looking at what we've got in front of us now, the report builder software is split into three main panes. On the left-hand side, you have your navigation. In the middle, we have a visual interpretation of the slide. And on the right-hand side, which is where we'll spend most of our time, is the customization area. But if we start from left to right, I'll just talk you through what each of these does. I mean, it's fairly simple, right? Like it looks pretty obvious, but on the left-hand side, you can navigate between the different questions that you've imported. So each one of these is an individual table that I've brought to the software. So if I click on ITV Hub usage, my slide in the middle is now based on that question, ITV Hub usage. And of course, you can search in here as well. So if I wanted to look for ITV player, can't spell, then I can find that question as well. And down on the bottom, I can duplicate slides, delete slides, and add brand new slides. Like if I had only chosen to bring in a subsection of the data, but I've decided that I actually need to bring in some more, I can hit the plus button and bring in some more slides as well. Of course, you can reorder these too. Just drag and drop them to reorder them. There we go. And then in the middle, we have a visual interpretation of what the PowerPoint is, that what this is going to look like in PowerPoint when we export it. I always make a point of saying that it's a visual interpretation because obviously we're in a web browser. This tool is all cloud-based. We're in a web browser, and I'm sure most of you have worked in Google Slides or worked in PowerPoint and then tried to convert it to Google Slides, only to find out that when you go into a browser, things look different. And even actually, if I zoom in or zoom out, you can see that my slide looks different depending on how zoomed in or out I am. Not massive differences, but they would be noticeable when you export them to PowerPoint. In terms of where everything is placed on the slide, I will actually show you how we import a new template, because obviously this is using my account, so it's my Labs branding, but you can switch between templates really easily, and I'll show you how the tool knows how to use, where to place each individual piece of information. But all of these objects are also clickable. So if there's an empty text box, I can click on it. That clicking on the chart brings me back to the chart area, and so on. And then the important part on the right-hand side is the customization area. So we have data settings, statistical analysis, which is sig testing, chart settings, layout settings, and color presets. We're going to start with layout settings. The first thing I always recommend people do once they've imported the data is to then make sure that they're working in the template that they want to work with. I'm going to show you what it is that we're going to be importing right now, just to show you how easy it is to set up your own templates. It's pretty straightforward. There aren't any magic tricks or anything like that. This is the template that I'm going to pull into the software. And actually, for a DashBox, I would almost recommend having a template set up with some project information, because when the user hits download from that software, any new slides that the platform is creating will go underneath the slides that are already in here. So you can have the project name, the sample information, the fieldwork dates, all of that kind of stuff. You can even have some marketing slides in there so that when they open it, they see some information about some other products or services that you offer, which is what I've got in here. So this is a slide showing some of the other services that we offer. But the important part is what happens in the slide master. So I go to the slide master. This is how we tell the report builder software where to put the important information. So when it finds a content placeholder, that's where report builder is going to put a chart. When it finds a text box, that's where you can either type in or you can preload it with some tags like question or base. There's a couple of others as well, table name and statistics. But question is basically telling it, this is where I want the question text to go. Base is telling it where you want the sample information to go, which dynamically updates as we switch between different cuts of the data. And of course, you can have multiple layouts. So in here, I've got 2 content placeholders. That means that I could technically add more than one chart to a slide. I'll show you how we do that in a moment as well. But importantly, these can be anywhere on the slide and designed exactly as you want them. So if you want the content placeholder to be really small, it can be. If you want question and base to both be at the top for some crazy reason, you can do that. It's entirely up to you how many of these you put in. And when the platform exports into this PowerPoint, it's going to use the font information and all of that kind of stuff from the template. So if this was big and bold and red, when I export, the question text is going to be big and bold and red as well. The other thing that's important to note is where the color scheme's coming from. It's basically using the theme colors. So when I switch the templates in a minute, the first bar, the first group of bars is going to be yellow. But if I was to add another column, it would then be black and then red and so on. Hopefully all clear so far, but obviously it'll become clearer when we pull it into the software. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is the exact same template. And if you watch what happens, it's now brought the template into the software. So my question text box was at the top, my base information was down at the bottom, big content placeholder in the middle for my chart. But like I said before, all of those other layouts are also available to me. So if I click on this layout, I had a second content placeholder on it. I can now click on that and bring in a second chart if I want to as well. I mean, these are just the same chart, but I'm going to show you how we can change the data in the charts as well. But importantly, this is a webinar about DashBox and how we can turn appendix sections into an interactive chart book. So my recommendation, if you were using this product, is to make use of the entire slide for this type of deliverable. If you're delivering the customer something where they're going to be interacting with the data and downloading it, you don't want there to be like an empty content box on the right hand side when they hit download or anything like that. You want to make use of the full space on the slide. So this would be a fairly typical layout that I might recommend or help a customer create if they were looking to deliver their data in a DashBox. Cool. We'll just go through some of the other settings over here on the right hand side. So coming back to data settings, this is a really important one. This is essentially how you're telling the platform what data you want to be visualized in this chart. So in this chart here, we right now have activities in the past week. That was the first table that we imported. But then in the column values, we have all of those column groups that were in that Excel file that I showed you earlier. So in here, we had total, gender, segmentation, social grade, and ITV region. Exactly what you see in here. And if you uploaded a different file with different cross breaks, you would see those different cross breaks in your list here. So I can click on gender, and automatically gender is being populated in this chart. You can see my base size dynamically updates as well, depending on what I select. Segmentation, maybe I just want to show intense demand and dip in demand. Let's ignore this low no demand for now. So you can see how you can turn on and off columns effectively. And you can do exactly the same with your rows, but importantly, because we don't have access to the raw data, we're not rebasing the tables or anything like that. We're literally just turning rows on and off. So if I remove none of these, it's not rebasing it to be all adults, excluding those who say none of these. It's still the full data set. It's worth keeping that in mind. And then you can switch your row columns, which becomes more useful with different chart types. Hide your percentage sign, and of course, you can sort the data as well. But let's just leave that as it was. In the chart settings, you have 10 different visual types available to you. They're all pretty common PowerPoint objects, nothing overly exciting or special here. When you click on one of these, it's using some default values that have been set in the background, and each of you would have your own company default values. So as a company, if when you choose a column chart, you typically have your legend on the right-hand side, we can set that as or you can set it yourselves as a default value so that you don't have to come in and change it every single time. And that's true of font size, font color, font type. In fact, when it says auto, that means that it's going to just use the font type directly from the template that you've uploaded, even if it's a custom font type that belongs to you or your customer. Same thing with data labels. You can change all of these. But technically, just keep in mind that all of these can be set as defaults so that you don't have to change them each and every time. I'm actually just going to go back to my riddles by doing that. Yeah, there we go. A lot of the functionality that's available to you in PowerPoint is available to you in here, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend spending hours coming through and designing the slides exactly as you want them, especially keeping in mind that this is a visual interpretation of what it's going to be when we hit download. So when you download into PowerPoint, things might move around slightly. So you're much better off getting as close as you can within here and then downloading if that's your intention. The one that is important is just series color. I just wanted to highlight that one to you because you can have a bunch of color presets available. And then in your chart settings, you can pick any of those presets. So if you have like a 5-point positive to negative scale or something like that, or in this case, if I just pick age and then apply those presets, the color scheme can update. You can change the color scheme. It doesn't have to be directly from your template. Equally, the series that you're visualizing, so total, I can go and use this color picker to go and grab something like the blue from the Indico Labs logo. And you can individually change the color scheme if you want to. But again, for something like this appendix style report, I would probably just keep it simple, stick to your template colors, and then you're available to work on other stuff. So there we go. Let's just do that. Sig testing, you can apply sig testing, but again, depending on how data savvy your customers are, I probably wouldn't turn sig testing on for a DashBox. But the important thing here is, even if you were using this to build out a static appendix report, you can see how you can do this really, really quickly. And if I was building out this report for my customer and they want to see everything broken down by total and then these two segments, I can, rather than having to go through and do that one by one on each and every one of these questions, I can take this entire slide setup and just apply it to everything. And then when I hit download PowerPoint, it will put all of these back into that original PowerPoint for me. Let's just open that up. And of course, importantly, this is a question that I'm asked regularly. Once you export from here, all of these objects are actual PowerPoint objects, so they're entirely editable once you've exported as well. So this is great, but what we are going to look at next is how we turn this into a DashBox. So if you think about, let's say your customer wants to actually see, they've decided that they want all of the segments in there and they don't want total or something like that. If you had just delivered the static report to them, they'd either have to go in themselves and create the new charts themselves, or they would come back to you and say, oh, actually, I've changed my mind. I also want to see my low-no demand in there as well. And of course, you could come into here yourself and quickly turn that on. So bring in all of your segments, turn off total or keep total or whatever that needs to look like, and apply those settings to all of the slides. But equally, and if I just go back to where we were, what we're going to look at next is how you put the power into their hands and give them something that's a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more interesting for them to work with, a little bit more powerful, something that they can do themselves. So once you've created a report in Report Builder, you can go back into your projects area and you have this button. Let's actually rename this to DashBox Example Webinar. I can hit this Create DashBox button, and there's a couple of things to fill out in here. You can put a logo in. This would be your own logo. I have an example one that I use. All you're doing is getting the link to the logo from a G drive. And then you can set an expiration date. For this one, I'm just going to set it as the 8th of May, a month from now, but you can set it as far into the future as you want, and then update that link. Once you've got that link, this now becomes the deliverable to the customer. So you could actually put this at the end of that shorter in-depth report and just say, if you want to see all of the data in an interactive chart book, click this link, or you can just send them the link in an email or whatever that needs to look like. But this link is effectively the DashBox. So you're looking at the same project. The user is accessing it through an individual link. You can have loads of users using this at the same time. All of the links work independently of one another. So you just send them all the same link, and when they click on it, it creates their own state, and they can now work within here. They have similar functionality, so they can search through the questions that were in there. If they had loads of questions, they can search through to find the specific data that they want. And then on the right-hand side, this is the main difference. They have stripped back functionality. So they can only do a handful of things. They can change the chart type. They can change the cut of the data that they're looking at. And they can switch the rows and columns or sort the data. And then they can, of course, download it. So if you think of this as just an interactive chart book built on top of the data tables so that they can see it all and use it all in visual form rather than looking at data tables, and then whenever they are happy, they can just hit download to PowerPoint themselves as well. Let's download all of the slides again. And then I'll open that up just to show you. Oh, I think PowerPoint crashed. Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. And then they've got the PowerPoint slides themselves. So the key thing is they can go into it, they can explore the data, and they can download whatever chart type they want, but they can't go and they can't change the template, they can't change how the charts look or anything like that. Just a really simple interface for them to interact with the data. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to share the link to this DashBox with the email that has the recording to this webinar. So you'll be able to come in here and play with it yourselves. But if you want to see it using your own branding, then feel free to send me your own PowerPoint template and I'll set one up for you using your template. And then you'll have your own DashBox link with your own branding that you can show to your colleagues and anything like that. So you can email me at adam.baker@indicolabs.io, or you can reply to the email when I send it through tomorrow or Friday. But that's taken us to 35 minutes. If anyone's got any questions, I'm very happy to stick around, and whether it's technical questions about how it works or any of the other products that we offer as well, I'm very happy to answer any questions.